Let me start with the chaos in Iowa. I just wonder how this is going to play into President Trump's 2020 chances, as well as to the hands of your party.
Well, certainly a disaster in Iowa in terms of the Democratic Party's inability to really just conduct a basic election or count the votes and the returns. We do see the far left candidates coming out in the lead here at the end with Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg looking like they will ultimately prevail. That's bad news for the Democratic Party because this agenda of socialism is far outside of the mainstream.
When it comes to the impeachment trial, we are expecting an acquittal tomorrow. It will be a strong day for President Trump, who, of course, also has a State of the Union tonight. I do wonder, though, is the GOP is at all thinking about the optics of the trial when you haven't allowed any witnesses in, and we are now seeing public opinion sort of shift?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be quite the contrast with the president tonight talking about the great American comeback, the blue-collar worker boom, the lowest unemployment in 50 years. 2.5 million Americans being lifted out of poverty because of this pro-growth agenda of tax cuts, deregulation, greater access to the capital markets, and more access to credit, and an American energy renaissance, American energy dominance, and newly renegotiated, rebalanced trade agreements. This is producing a blue-collar boom for this country. And the president tonight is going to be laying out his vision for relentless optimism and prosperity and upward mobility for the American people. What a contrast to what the message is from the Democrats. Pessimism, criticism, impeachment, really not what the American people want to be focused on right now. And in terms of the actual trial, you know, it just doesn't make sense that House Democrats are complaining that there was no witnesses in the Senate when they chose to proceed without these witnesses in the House and, in fact, deny the president the ability to have due process, bring his own witnesses, and even denied Republicans the ability to cross-examine witnesses during the House proceedings. So I think the American people are ready to put this behind them and move forward with what matters to them, which is their own pocketbooks.
Congressman, some of the polling, though, as Jerry suggested, has seen that public sentiment has shifted at a pretty crucial time, a crucial year for President Trump. Do you believe that due process has been followed in this impeachment process?
Well, certainly in the Senate, there's been due process because both sides have been able to litigate and make their case. The House was an uneven process where the president was not even allowed counsel present, where you had secret depositions and secret hearings, where Republican members of Congress were even denied the ability to cross-examine witnesses. The president was denied the ability to present witnesses. At least now in the Senate, you had the president's counsel present, and they had the ability to make their case. And clearly, they made their case, I think, not only to the Senate, but to the American people as well. Look, the president did nothing wrong. He actually carried out the foreign policy of the United States with Ukraine. You know, no less than 5 times in the last 6 years, Congress, on a bipartisan basis, not only authorized the president to do what he did in terms of withholding aid to the Ukraine, but actually mandated. Congress required the president to seek and obtain assurances from the government of Ukraine that Ukraine was countering corruption within that country. So the president was doing his job and doing it well. And I think that's why the president ultimately has been acquitted and exonerated in this case.
Andy, we've seen the coronavirus really send a shudder through the economies, not just of China, but regionally, and starting to be an international impact. Should the U.S. government, should the Fed be doing more to protect the economy there?
Well, look, I think the Fed policy is pretty stable right now. Interest rates are low. I think the most important thing with the Fed is they're pursuing a very predictable, stable monetary policy. I don't think we need lower interest rates right now. Interest rates are sufficiently low. I don't think we need any more distortionary monetary policy. But what we do see is a fiscal policy that's very pro-growth. And that's why you see this blue-collar worker boom. And again, the lowest income earning Americans are the Americans that are seeing the fastest gains in terms of real wage growth. We're seeing the fastest wage growth in America, especially at that blue-collar, lower-income levels, the fastest wage growth in over a decade since before the recession, before the financial crisis. So the American people are clearly better off when free enterprise is unleashed and when you have these pro-growth policies. And it's very ironic that the leading contenders for the Democratic nomination for president are proposing not only to roll back those pro-growth policies, but are actually fully embracing socialism, which is, of course, the road to serfdom and misery. That is not what the American people want. Why in the world would they make a change when their economic prospects are so much better today?